Chapter 5 Season 4 has been here for about a week or two, and I was playing the game today and it got me thinking, right, with all the new weapons that have been added into this season, what are the best weapons in all of Chapter 5? And that's exactly what we're going to do today. We are going to kind of take a little revisitation through Chapter 5 and kind of discuss what are some of the best weapons that have been featured in this chapter. These are some of those weapons that if you took them out of Chapter 5 and put them in any other chapter, they would likely be a higher tier weapon. With all that being said, guys, be sure to drop a like on this video if you go on to enjoy it and use code TYFRYZ in the Fortnite item shop. Thank you to everybody who's done so this month. It has been amazing. The support from you guys has been absolutely incredible and I can totally feel it, so thank you. With all that being said, let's get right into this. So I figured we'd take our first stop in this video at Chapter 5 Season 1. So what were some of the best weapons in Chapter 5 Season 1? Well, right off the bat, I can tell you the Reaper Sniper Rifle is one of the best. This is not only one of the best weapons in the entirety of Chapter 5, it is one of the best weapons of all time. And I'm saying that even after the nerf to it. Of course, this thing got massive nerfs. Pre-nerf, I believe that this is probably a top 10 weapon we've ever seen, especially in Chapter 5 Season 1 with that P2X optic. I mean, it literally felt like you had aimbot. It was unfair. I remember for myself, I just used to not use ARs. There was no point in using an AR that season. Everybody had a sniper rifle. For me, it was always Reaper Sniper Rifle, Frenzy Auto Shotgun, maybe a Thunderburst SMG. Give me a grapple blade, some heals, we are good to go. And yeah, I mean, we all know the nerf that absolutely killed this thing. In update V28.10, the bullet speed was reduced by 8% and the bullet drop, and this is the big one, increased by 40%. But then they did even more on April 5th of 2024. Bullet speed reduced by 16% and bullet drop reduced by 116%, which is like a weird one, right? Is it a buff that the bullet drop was reduced by 116%? I mean, I think so. To me, a bullet drop increasing by 116% would have been a nerf, but I don't know. Weird verbiage there. But still, all these tweaks made it so hard to hit a shot with the Reaper Sniper Rifle. But with all that being said, I do still believe it is a top tier weapon in Chapter 5. And sticking with Chapter 5 is the Thunderburst SMG. And I'll be honest with you guys, I was the first person to absolutely dog and hate on the Thunderburst SMG. I made a video in the beginning of Chapter 5 tier listing every single weapon, and I basically dogged on the Thunderburst SMG, saying, you know what, nobody wants another burst SMG. We don't need it. You know, everybody wants the Hyper SMG, and wow, I couldn't be any more wrong. Because the Hyper SMG ended up being actually terrible. I believe it has the second lowest DPS ever out of any SMG in Fortnite. I think it's tied with the suppressed SMG. And yeah, I think it's just another bottom feeder weapon that we've seen reintroduced actually in Chapter 5 Season 4. But the Thunderburst SMG has soared above a ton of SMGs, probably a top 3 SMG ever, mainly because of those attachments, right? When you get that laser sight, you get that no bloom. It does great damage. You can hip fire ADS. It doesn't matter. You have the no bullet spread. That is huge. Again, I take full accountability here. I was very anti-Thunderburst SMG when it came out, but now that we don't have it in Chapter 5 Season 4, it's one of those situations where it's like you don't realize what you had until it's gone, right? Because the Thunderburst SMG was absolutely one of the best, if not possibly the best weapon in Chapter 5. And our final weapon from Chapter 5 Season 1, actually reintroduced into Chapter 5 Season 4, is the Striker AR. And I've got a lot of positive stuff to say about the Striker. If you've seen any of my recent videos, you guys know I am Striker gang, right? It was basically Striker versus Nemesis for all of Chapter 5 Season 1. Well, I guess the Enforcer, I believe, came later in Chapter 5 Season 1, but I mean, that thing's dog water anyways. I don't know. I just never liked the Nemesis AR. I could never get around to liking it. I always took the Striker every single time. I just wish this weapon was hit scan. Like, I know it's how all the Chapter 5 weapons work, but could you just imagine how good the Striker AR would have been if it was hit scan? I feel like, unfortunately, it got a little bit kind of overshadowed by the Reaper Sniper Rifle. As I had mentioned earlier, a lot of people didn't even bother taking assault rifles in Chapter 5 once they got their hands on the Reaper. But now the Striker is in a pretty heated competition for the best AR in Chapter 5 Season 4, and spoiler alert, we may or may not be talking about that specific assault rifle later in this video. Alright, I actually lied because there is another weapon from Chapter 5 Season 1 here. That's the Frenzy Auto Shotgun. What an interesting kind of history this weapon has, because I do think that you could potentially make the argument that with the launch of Chapter 5, the Frenzy Auto, specifically Oscar's Frenzy Auto, the mythic version, was the best shotgun we had ever seen. And for some some of you who didn't get to use that and are just listening to this like for the first time, go back and watch the gameplay from launch, or anybody who has actually used this weapon when it first came out. It was absolutely destructive. It was almost game breaking. It ended up getting a pretty substantial nerf in Chapter 5 Season 2. They reduced the fire rate from 2.5 to 2.2, and they reduced the headshot multiplier from 1.75 to 1.65. So while those are very minimal numbers, right, 2.5 to 2.2 doesn't sound like a lot, it really is, and it made a big difference in my opinion to pushing the Frenzy Auto out of that kind of best shotgun range. Especially in no builds, I don't think there was ever a question in Chapter 5 Season 1 what shotgun you were going to take, right? It was always the Frenzy Auto shotgun. And I guess part of that may just be because a lot of people didn't like the hammer shotgun, me included. I did not like the hammer pump whatsoever, and so I think a lot of people just naturally gravitated towards the Frenzy Auto. But a lot of times we really don't see like auto shotguns as like the main shotgun in the meta. It's almost always a pump shotgun, but that was absolutely not the case in Chapter 5 Season 1. The Frenzy Auto absolutely dominated all close quarter engagements. But the Frenzy Auto was beaten out by a shotgun introduced in Chapter 5 Season 2 that is still in the game. It's actually been in the game for 3 seasons now, which is kind of crazy to say. It's the Gatekeeper shotgun. And again, this is another weapon that on launch I was not a fan of at all. When I saw that you only had 3 shells and you had to reload, I was so anti-Gatekeeper, I couldn't believe it. But again, I couldn't have been more wrong. The Gatekeeper, and I've seen this argument going on Twitter recently, like where does the Gatekeeper rank in all-time shotguns? I would say top 5 at least. I think that you could honestly make an argument for a top 3 or even the best, right? I mean, I think personally the best is the Havoc pump, right? But I think you could potentially make an argument for the Gatekeeper. You essentially have pump shotgun-like damage out of a tac shotgun fire rate. Again, yes, the 3 shells and then you have to reload is terrible, right? We all hate it. But being able to put a drum mag on it changed that a lot now. To my knowledge, in Chapter 5 Season 4, I don't think that you can do that anymore. But again, they tried to bring the Gatekeeper shotgun another competitor in Chapter 5 Season 4, that being the Sovereign shotgun, and it's absolutely fallen flat on its face. The Gatekeeper is still the best shotgun in the game. And I would honestly argue by a pretty large margin, right? I don't think there's any question about it right now in the current meta, especially when you paired this with like the Dash Medallion or any of the green Skull Water. It was unbelievable. That combo is one of my favorite metas ever. Again, the Gatekeeper is not a weapon that I really started out liking, but now that I've used it a lot more and have gotten a little bit better with it, I would say, it has slowly crept up to being one of my favorite shotguns I've ever used. And yeah, I don't really have anything from Chapter 5 Season 3, really. I mean, I was thinking about adding the Nitro Fists in here. Again, they were really strong at launch and they're a great mobility item, but Chapter 5 Season 4 honestly just brought so many overpowered items that there was just no room for the Nitro Fists on this list. So Chapter 5 Season 3 kind of gets put on the back burners here. But I have an absolute haul of a couple of weapons from Chapter 5 Season 4. Of course, I'm sure you guys have been playing this game as much as I have in the last couple of weeks. And yeah, you can definitely tell that there is some balancing that needs to happen, and there will be. I think there was just announced that they were going to nerf the Captain America shield item, and then they were also going to nerf War Machine's arsenal, 2 items that desperately needed a nerf. But since they're in the conversation right now, let's just talk about them. War Machine's arsenal, right? I would argue that this is the strongest, most overpowered weapon in all of Chapter 5. More overpowered than the Reaper Sniper, all that stuff. This thing is essentially a walking mech. You guys have seen the gameplay. I'm sure you've gotten killed by it. I'm sure you've killed people by it, right? It is legitimately a walking mech. It needs a nerf. It is absolutely going to get one. It was just announced a couple minutes ago that yes, it is getting nerfed, so there it is. Even with that nerf, I still do think this is going to be the go-to item you're going to hunt for in Chapter 5 Season 4. I think it'll stay that way for a little bit. And we were just talking about Captain America's shield, so yeah, let's talk about it right now again. I am not a no builds player, but I do know that this thing is absolutely terrorizing zero build right now. Similar to kind of how the Riot Shield or Ballistic Shield was in Chapter 5 Season 1. Again, another weapon that was actually very close to making this list. I think Captain America's shield is better though. Again, as I said like about a minute ago, it was just announced that Captain America's shield is getting a nerf. I believe they're nerfing the damage from 60 to 50. I think they're making it so you have to be more accurate for the shield to actually connect, because if you guys don't know, I mean, when you use this thing right now, you don't have to throw it directly at them. It just has to be within that circle and it'll connect. So yeah, I mean, I think it is getting a pretty substantial nerf, it seems like. Will that stop people from using it? I mean, especially in zero build, any shield, no matter how bad it is, really is still going to be useful, because even if they nerf the damage and the throwing aspect, people are still going to use it to block bullets, right? I mean, that's a key part of zero build. You get caught in the open, pull out the shield, buy yourself some time, right? So I do still think, as of right now, Captain America shield is a top tier item in all of Chapter 5. But the two items that I had just talked about are made 10 times better this season by War Machine's hover jets. I absolutely will take full accountability. Maybe I'm just not good at ranking these items when they first come out. I need a little more time to play with them, but I put this item pretty low on my ranking every single items list in Chapter 5 Season 4. And while yes, I was partially right by saying that War Machine's hover jets are not great on their own, they're not like a crazy good mobility item. I know there's like a current kind of exploit that's going on where people are like combining a bunch of moves together with the hover jets and you can go flying, but the jets absolutely lift up like 4 or 5 items this season. If you have the hover jets and Captain America shield, you're absolutely running zero build right now, and that's a big problem in the zero build community in Chapter 5 Season 4. I keep seeing people just hovering in the air with shields. They'll block their bullets. Then once you're out of bullets, they'll just start throwing the shield at you. It'll chain to all your teammates, and there's a whole squad wipe without ever shooting a bullet. Or you combine the hover jets with the arsenal, and you are literally a flying mech. Guys, you guys know you are playing this game. You can see how animated I'm getting about it. It's insane. You are a flying mech. Honestly, at this point, at the current state of Chapter 5 Season 4, I think the hover jets are a must carry. You have to have the hover jets if you want to be competitive in a match of Chapter 5 Season 4 right now. I think this is borderline level of Shockwave Hammer. I will go that far to say it. I mean, look, this season has been a total kind of balancing nightmare, but I mean, it's fun, right? And I enjoy having fun when I play video games. So yeah, I'm going to be using this thing still until they absolutely nerf it into the ground. And the final weapon that I'm going to talk about today, of course, again, from Chapter 5 Season 4, how many times have I said that in this video? It's going to be the new, or I guess semi-new assault rifle this season. That's the Striker Burst. And what an oversight. I mean, can I just say something real quick? Why do we have two assault rifles with the exact same name, the Striker AR and the Striker AR? They are both the same exact name. That is stupid. Also, just for my ranking's sake, can they please stop using the same Chapter 2 Season 2 AUG weapon model for like 7 different weapons? I mean, how hard is it to just create a new weapon model for these bursts? I mean, think about it. We've had this version of Striker Burst. We've had the Chapter 3 Striker Burst. We've had the Chapter 2 Season 2 AUG. We've had the Chapter 2 Season 3 Ocean's Burst assault rifle. We've had the Chapter 3 Season 2 version of the burst, was it? I think Chapter 2 Season 8, it was in there as well. I mean, it's like 7 different weapons that all use the same weapon model. What are we doing here? With that being said, I do think that this could be the best version of the Striker Burst that we have seen to date. If you were to ask me right now, what is the better assault rifle, the Striker AR or the Striker Burst AR, I would say the Striker Burst. I mean, when you get this thing kitted out, it is really, really good at that mid-range, even long-range. This thing excels. I really like what they did here. I feel like burst ARs have been out of the meta for a little bit, so I'm happy to see it coming back, right? And a good AR meta finally feels really, really good. So yeah, guys, in my opinion, those are the best weapons that we have seen in Chapter 5 so far. Of course, there are still items that are going to be added throughout the season, more mythics and more items that probably will end up belonging on this list. Let me know in the comment section, did you think that there were any weapons that got snubbed that should have been on this list? Were there any that I mentioned that you think shouldn't have been on this list? Let me know. If you guys went on to enjoy this video, be sure to leave it a like, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.